so you can knock this one out of the park. That's what you want, right? So today we're talking about Hong Sau, and there's a lot of misconceptions about Hong Sau. There's a lot of misconceptions about meditation, period. So today we're going to try and clear up a lot of that. So the first thing that we have to ask ourselves is, what is the most important part of this meditation that I'm doing? Because if we don't have those answers, I mean, you don't have to ask yourself that all the time, but if you don't have some of those answers, you can spend 40 years with your technique and not get very deep with it. You know, maybe you'll get little snippets of experience, a little silence, a little peace here and there, but you're not going to get the depth that you were hoping for. And I've met those people that have been meditating for 20 or 40 years and still have problems. And I have a lot of compassion for them, and that's why I'm here. I want to help you guys. I want to help you with this technique. So what is the most important part of Hong Sau? Well, it's the breath. It's the breath. So I want to give you the Holy Trinity of breath work, okay? And it's really easy, it's really simple, it's nothing crazy, but you gotta have this stuff, because if you don't have it in your pocket, you can be stuck with meditation for a long time. So number one, we need a reduced breath rate. What does that mean? We need the breath under 7 breaths a minute. So get a watch, time how many times you breathe, reduce it, reduce your breath rate, and see what is comfortable for you. Now, you don't want to lower it so far that you get into stress. That's the sympathetic nervous system. That's not what we want. We want the parasympathetic. So it has to be relaxed. It has to be easy. So you got to find that range. Now 7 is not that low, and children can do this. Most of the people that I work with tell me that 7 is way too fast for them, and they usually hit around 6 or 5.5 breaths per minute, even if they're beginner meditators. So find the range which is good for you, under 7 breaths a minute, the one which is easy and comfortable for you, and keep your breath at that low rate for the entire meditation. Now the Buddhists have this technique called mindfulness. The only instruction that they have is to sit and be mindful in the moment. And when you do that, of course, the most now thing is your breath, and maybe your heartbeat if you can be aware of it, but your breath, right? And so they will sit there and notice their breath and be mindful of their breath. And they really don't want any other instruction. That's the instruction, and that's what they do. And that's great. And what happens in 10 or 20 years is that they will lower their breath rate. It just happens naturally after that much mindfulness. But here's a tip. If you want to skip 20 years, go ahead and lower the breath rate now. So it's just a little advice. Just plug a little yoga in there and just go ahead and lower the breath rate under that 7 breaths a minute threshold, and it's gonna make a big difference, trust me. Number 2, we're gonna flatten the breath, and I'm gonna explain what that means. You might have heard of box breathing, and if you haven't, I'm gonna explain it really quick. It's very simple. If you were to breathe in for a count of 10, and then hold the breath for a count of 10, and then breathe out for a count of 10, and then hold the breath again for a count of 10 before you breathe in, that would be a box, right? That's box breathing. So we're gonna take that box and we're just gonna flatten it. And what that means is we're gonna breathe in and breathe out, and breathe in and breathe out. And we're not gonna pause. We wanna take out the pauses from the breath. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna take the energy that would be expended when the breath is held, and it's gonna put it back into the breath, and it's gonna help to elongate the breath. It's gonna help you with number 1, keeping that breath rate reduced. If you've ever been in a scary situation where you go, and you hold the breath, that's not a good state. So we're taking all of that out. We want the in breath and out breath, and you don't want to be in a hurry, okay? That again is the sympathetic nervous system. We want the parasympathetic, so easily transition. Try and take all of the stops and holds out of the breath. Make the breath really smooth, really easy, in and out, under 7 breaths a minute. And number 3 of the Holy Trinity of breath work, we want the out breath to be slightly longer than the in breath. And the reason for this, I've explained it before in How to Meditate for Beginners. This is really important. Let's go over it quickly. When there's breath in the lungs, combustion takes place in the lungs, and the heart needs to work more. It needs to transfer the purified gases through the body, the oxygen through the body, and therefore it needs to pump more. It needs to work more. And when the breath is out of the lungs, there's no gases to transfer. Therefore, the heart should be able to take a little bit of a breather and relax. It's exactly like when you're in your car and you come up to a stop sign and you stop and you put your foot on the clutch and you just let the engine idle. That's what we're doing with our hearts. Now, if you're at the stop sign and you with the gas, everybody's gonna look at you like, what's going on, man? It's gonna be okay, right? So that's what we're doing constantly when we're in stress with our hearts, is we just on the gas all the time. And so what happens in meditation, we activate the dorsal parasympathetic nerve, which puts a tiny brake on the heart and allows the heart to rest on the out breath, especially. By doing so, we save heartbeats, we save energy, and that's going to transfer to number 1. The breath will become more elongated, easily and effortlessly and naturally. And that's what we want, right? Naturally, easily. And it doesn't take that much. It's just a slight difference. The in-breath should be a little bit shorter and the out-breath should be a little bit longer. Just a little bit. That's all it takes to assist with that transfer of energy that's going to take place when we are saving heartbeats. And what is the proof for all this? How do you know that you're actually accomplishing this? Well, if you follow that Holy Trinity, it's gonna happen automatically by itself. It's your body, it knows what to do. You just have to put it in the right place. But here's the proofs. Number 1, your hands will become hot, heavy, and dry. Now you probably can't feel that they're dry, but you can feel for sure that they're hot and heavy. And as you go on and you sit still, you gotta sit still. As you go on, they're gonna get hotter and heavier. And it's a really magical feeling. It's extremely relaxing, and you're gonna start to notice it throughout the rest of your body as well. Now, I'm married to a nurse, and she's always commenting to me about, oh, well, that person's too cold, the blood has come out of their lip. Oh, that person is not feeling well, and the blood has come out of their lip. And so I started to notice in meditation, well, I'm activating that parasympathetic dorsal nerve, it's putting a brake on my heart, and the blood is coming out of my lip too in meditation. So it will come in and come out, and come in and come out of the lip. And you can notice it, but you have to know to put your attention there. So that's the second proof that you're activating the parasympathetic dorsal nerve. So here's a funny story. I went to Professor Gervitz in San Diego and talked to him about heart rate variability because he's a genius. And he and his colleagues were working on heart rate variability, and they had gotten quite a ways when they met a Russian professor who was also working on it. I forget his name, I'll put it below. And he had actually gotten a little bit farther than them. And he told a story how this all came about. They had an astronaut, a Russian astronaut, up in space, circling the Earth, and they had him hooked up so they could monitor his breath and his heart rate. And they noticed that his heart rate was going up and then going way down, and then going up and then going way down, and it freaked them out. They didn't know what was going on. So they got him on the line. All they had was radio at the time. They got him on the line and they said, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And the guy says, "I'm meditating, leave me alone." Just like that. So the guy came back down, and this professor, who was an engineer, was mechanically minded. He says, well, you got to sit with me. I got to figure this out. What was going on with you that your heart was doing this wave up and down? And so he figured it out. And it's heart rate variability. That's what we call it. It's your body's natural sinus arrhythmia. It's a very natural and easy process. And it's how your body saves heartbeats. So forget about Putin. It's that Russian in the sky we want to be talking about. So Hong Sau is a really magical technique, right? And we have it from a number of sources, a number of Shivanite texts. So wherever you learn this, remember it goes way, way back. And when I say way back, I mean even the Greeks picked it up. And they probably got it by way of Egypt, but it's all over Greek mythology. One of the best stories for this technique, Sisyphus and the stone. And he's the guy pushing the stone up the hill, and he pushes it up and he pushes it up, and then it rolls back down, and then he pushes it up and he pushes it up and it rolls back down, right? We've all heard that story. Did you know it was your breath? That's Hong Sau. It comes in, it goes out, comes in and comes out, and we labor behind that stone all this time, right? So let's look at that name, Sisyphus. The name is the technique, right? And it's the same thing for Hong Sau. The technique is the sound of your breath. So forget all the other meanings. It is your breath. The technique is your breath, and you gotta follow the Holy Grail when it comes to your breath, right? That's what's gonna get you there the fastest. Now I know there's some instructions out there. You just sit with your breath, you just chant with your breath, and you don't do anything else. I'm telling you, you can do that for 10 or 20 years. Or you can go ahead and lower your breath rate right now, because it's medically proven. It saves heartbeats, and it's magical. So if you're worried about the sound and you're trying to get the sound right and you stress out about it, it's okay. But it's kind of like you're holding the wrong end of the stick. And you want to be holding the right end of the stick so you can knock this one out of the park. That's what you want, right? So I'm telling you, it's all in the breath. Lower the breath rate, get a reduced breath rate, number 1. Number 2, take out the pauses. That's going to help you with that. And number 3, make the out breath slightly longer than the in breath. That's the Holy Grail. That's the Holy Trinity. And you have it. You will have it. It's incredible. I wish to God somebody had told me all this from the very start, man. I would... I don't know where I'd be. Okay, this is John Selby in Kundalini Rising, and he's talking about quieting the mind and how do you approach that. And he says, I say this because when I approach meditation techniques as a psychologist, it took me only a few years to crack the quiet your mind challenge. I began to watch my thoughts flowing through my mind, and I took note when they temporarily stopped. I encourage you to do this for yourself. It's a basic Buddhist meditation. He goes on and he talks about a research, and he said, we noted that when they did one of their meditations of focusing on 2 or more sensory events at the same time, their EEG indicated a sudden shift into alpha. Looking back, I realized the quiet mind insight and began purposely putting together a meditation that applied the insight. So you hear that? It took me only a few years to crack the quiet your mind challenge. Okay, this is huge. And I have 2 videos on this. One is the no mind video, and the other is relax the tongue to silence your mind. Okay, both of those videos are doing exactly that. They're cracking the Quiet Your Mind challenge. So don't spend 20 or 40 years trying to quiet your mind. Watch those 2 videos and learn how to do it now. Now I'm going to do another video on this because there's actually 2 no minds that we want. But that's for later. For right now, don't spend years with that. So what is Hong Sau doing? First of all, we're watching the breath. We're going to use the Holy Grail, right? Because we want to skip 20 or 40 years, right? That sounds good. So let's skip that. And now, the sound of Hong Sau, is it a word or is it a sound? Whatever fills the mind eventually empties the mind. So it's like you're filling up your mind with Hong and Sau continuously. And when you do enough of that, it pushes all the other thoughts out of your linguistic mind, all of the other words out of your linguistic mind. That's a good process. But how about we follow the breath, we do the Holy Grail, and we get into the no mind right now, listening to John Selby's advice, okay? That's gonna be 2 perceptions at the same time. So you can watch the breath come in through your nose and watch it in your belly, or you can watch it in your nose and your chest, or you can look up to your spiritual eye and feel your spiritual eye and feel your breath at the same time. That's 2 points. Or you can watch your breath and notice that your hands are getting hot and heavy. That's 2 points at the same time. What does 2 points do? It pushes you from the left into the right hippocampus. It puts you into spatial perception, which is pictorial, 2 points. Magical, no mind, right now. Crack the code. Don't spend forever trying to wrench your mind. See, when your mind fights your mind and one mind wins, you're still stuck with your mind. So what was that for? I'm telling you, you gotta crack the code, and I just gave you all the keys to the kingdom. So try it out. Give it a shot. I think that's it. I think we've wrapped up Hong Sau, and we'll come back again and talk about that second no mind that I brought up, the emotional no mind. Stick around, subscribe, so you make sure you can check that out too. Take care, and thanks for watching.